Gerwyn, over to you. It'd be good to hear a bit more about the fund, and then we'll have some questions and answers afterwards. Over to you, Gerwyn.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, and hello to everyone on the screen. Nice to meet you all. I recognise some faces, so nice to meet those people I haven't met before. As Sean alluded to, I'm the Deputy Director, so effectively the Chief Executive of Creative Wales. We were actually set up in January, Sean, not November, so we've only been in existence since January, so had 2 months of kind of working out what we wanted to do to support the creative industries, and then into kind of COVID recovery mode from March. And all of our activity has been related to supporting the industry and the creative sectors through COVID, through this very difficult time. And as Sean alluded to, we've been fully aware right throughout the process that the freelancer community has missed out on all the funding mechanisms, both from the UK and from Welsh Government. So for my sins, I was involved in the Economic Resilience Fund and was a lead member of designing and delivering that fund. So I was fully aware that the freelancer community were missing out through that investment. So once the UK government announced the 1.57 billion creative culture fund at the UK level, and that resulted in 59 million consequential for Wales, and then we launched a 53 million pound fund off the back of that. But people ask where did the other 6 million go? So we previously put 18 million into the sector within the first couple of weeks of the crisis. So actually we put more than the 59 million into the creative and culture sector. So when we had that announcement, we were very keen to do something for the freelance community. And as Sean said, we've been working very closely with the unions to get an understanding of which bits of the freelance community have missed out, the reasons for them missing out, etc. So all of that advice and learning that we've taken from Sean and others, we've built into a freelance fund, which we're about to launch on Monday, the 5th of October. So I've been doing as much engagement as I can on the fund, because it's a new thing for me personally in terms of delivering something that's not business focused. Most of the stuff that I've done previously has been support for business. So this freelancer fund is definitely a new thing for me. So we've been learning as I've gone through, which has been really useful. And we met, there's a freelancer task force that's been set up. We've had good engagement with that. As I said, we've had good engagement with Bectu and the other unions as well, Equity, and a couple of the other unions have been meeting with us quite regularly. So I think the engagement has really been good with the freelance community for people who represent you anyway. So we've had a lot of conversation about how the fund should look, who the fund should target, etc. So I'll quickly take you through the guidance document. I'll share that online now so you can have a quick look. But hopefully you would have all seen that we sent out an eligibility checker about 2 weeks ago now, basically setting out the key parameters of where we think the sectors that we will support by this fund. Is £7 million. The total amount of money that's going into this freelancer fund is £7 million. And we will be awarding £2,500 for each applicant. If you do the maths, that's basically 2,800 freelancers in the creative and cultural sectors around Wales that we hope to support through this fund. So we're fully aware that can't support everyone. We think there's probably about 12,500 freelancers in Wales currently. The evidence base is not great, if I'm honest, and throughout this process, learning and finding out about the freelance community is definitely something I'm keen to do more of and working better with you in the future, because there is a lack of evidence base in terms of how the numbers involved and the economic impact of the sector, which is really useful for us in terms of how we can support you going forward. But as I say, 7 million will open on Monday the 5th. I've been working with local authorities over the past 2 weeks, and local authorities have agreed and signed up to helping us deliver the fund. So effectively what will happen is on the eligibility checker, which I'll send around again to Sian so she can share with everyone, you go in via that tool. It's on Business Wales. Everyone hopefully knows the Business Wales portal, and you'll click on, say you're a freelancer, as an example, say you're from Pembrokeshire, and that will take you through then to an online form to be delivered through the local authority. So I've been working with each local authority. They'll all have consistent guidance, consistent application forms. It'll all be done on the same process, but you will be basically appraised on whichever local authority you live in, not whichever local authority you work in, but the one you live in. So that's the key point, is where you live is where you apply for this funding, and that local authority will we'll take you through the process and hopefully get the money to you as quickly as possible, because that's effectively what we're aiming to do with this fund, is to get money out to freelancers who need it the most. We know we're not going to be able to target everyone with 7 million. We know that, as I say, the numbers are too big for us to support everyone. So there is a bit of a plea for myself, really, if people are back in work, if people are not desperate for this money, and I'm sure most people are, and it's almost a silly thing for me to say, but there's parts of the sector which have had no work and are likely to have no work going forward. I know the kind of the mood music in the media is not great at the moment. You would have seen the 6 month figure being talked about today in the media. So there's people who haven't had any kind of work over the past few months and are likely to do so over the next few months. So where I work in creative, we know some film and TV people are back in work. We know other sectors are back in work. So the digital sector, for example, we're really hopeful that the people who apply for this are really the people who need it the most, and the freelance community understand that and kind of take that into account when they're thinking of applying. We've thought about which areas we could exclude from applying, and it's very, very difficult. We didn't want to exclude who sectors just on the basis that we thought they'd been earning enough money to survive through the crisis. So we have excluded any sports freelancers, and that's not because we don't think sports is a priority. That's because there was an announcement last week that there's another £14 million going into the sports sector to be delivered through Sports Wales. So anyone who is working or operating in the sports sector will be better targeted into that fund. So we can target the majority of the creative and cultural sectors, which we want to do via this fund. Anyone who works in the sports sector will go in via whatever's released via Sports Wales. We're also thinking about, and this is very new in terms of my thought process, and Sian, I probably haven't even talked this through with you yet, but I'll take comments and questions on this. Specifically around graphic designers, web designers, architects, which could all be eligible under the criteria that we've set. We're thinking probably if you compare them to the sectors within the arts, within the theatre world, within the more creative side of it, probably have had more access to work over the crisis. So we have put something on the guidance, which you'll see now, that we basically recommending that if you're in those areas, we feel that unless you can make a very solid case that you've had no income over the period, that we would suggest you don't apply. We don't really want to make it ineligible for people to apply, because I'm sure individuals can have a strong enough case to do so. But we're very keen to get the message out there that 7 million is not going to last very long. It's going to be gone quite quickly, and we want to get it to the people who need it most, really. So we've talked as well a lot about giving everyone a fair chance to apply. I've been talked to Sian and many others around access issues within the freelance community. So what we're intending to do, and what I've basically asked the authorities to do, is to phase the fund into 2 stages. So it'll open on the 5th, and the local authorities will have 50% of the budget, and that would be split down on a model that we've designed in each authority. So just as an example, Cardiff will have more money because Cardiff will have more freelancers. We've based it on a model of the self-employed figures, which we think is the closest thing to do. But once each authority hits that 50% target, they'll close the fund down, leave it closed for a week, probably no more than that, and then they'll open it back up for the second 50%. So we hope by doing that, it gives the freelance community who have access issues, need more time to think about filling the form out, would then have the ability to bid into the second phase. So it's very difficult to prioritise a fund that's targeted to individuals. We don't want to be in a position where we're prioritising one individual against another in terms of who needs the money. So it's not really a first come first serve fund, but it is open for a period, and once the money is gone, effectively the money is gone. So by phasing it, we're hoping that we give in that extra time for parts of the freelance community that need it. So it was the fairest way we thought we could do it. Another thing which I'll talk about quickly before I pull the document up on the screen so you can see it in more detail is something called the Freelancer Pledge. Ministers, when they signed off this fund, and it's part of as I say, the much larger £53 million fund. So you're probably aware the Arts Council, they had £25 million of the fund. Their application process is opened and closed, and they're appraising their applications at the moment. We are open for businesses and organisations within events, heritage, culture and creative. And I think in the last look, I think we're up to about 300 applications and just over £10 million. So that's rapidly running out of money as well, that fund for businesses and organisations. So we hope by supporting the wider infrastructure, we're also supporting the freelance community as well. So by keeping all those organisations and businesses sustained into next year, we'll obviously support freelancers as well. But we did think having an individual freelancer fund was the right thing to do, as I said. But ministers, they want, in all of the kind of policy decisions, it's a something for something approach, they call it. So any business organisation that gets money from this fund will have to sign up to a cultural contract. And by that we mean they'll have to work with us over the next year around things like fair work, diversity and inclusion, not just in the workforce, but at the board level as well. How the sector can work better to carbon reduction, all key kind of Welsh Government policy agendas that we'll be asking organisations to sign up to and kind of work towards improving in those areas. We obviously don't want to put that much pressure on individuals. So what we've agreed in terms of the freelancer is something called the Freelancer Pledge. So if you're applying for the money and it's voluntary, you don't have to tick the box if you don't want to, but it's voluntary to say, if I accept the money, I'm happy to sign up to the Freelancer Pledge. And what that means is basically, for me, it's a start of how Welsh Government and local authority and the public sector more generally works better with and understands the freelance community more. So it's a start on a journey to work much more effectively with you as a cohort of individuals, and kind of bringing you into, I know probably lots of you do this already, but bringing you in to work and support initiatives within the public sector, be it through local authorities, through public health, through anything. It could be through any activity. What we're trying to do is to build up this kind of new way of working between freelancers and the public sector, and that's what we're hoping to do with this Freelancer Pledge. We've got a working group which I think is meeting this week, the first meeting, which has I think 10 freelancers on it that cover a wide range and diversity across the freelance community. We have the 5 key unions, so Bectu and Equity and the others sitting on there, as well as ourselves, local authorities, Arts Council, Wellbeing and Future Generation. So while you'll be ticking the box to say you sign up to a Freelancer Pledge, there's still a bit of work we need to do in the background as well. So, but for me, it's a commitment to working much better with you guys as a community going forward. So I'll stop talking there because I'm probably boring the pants off the majority of you. So if I go through the document, this is 95, 90, 96, 7% finished. I'm not going to make many changes to it now. We've made as many changes to it as we possibly can. We have to get to a position where we draw a line in the sand on the guidance and the application form. But if there's any massive red flags that you can see, please raise them tonight. And there's still a little bit of a window of opportunity to amend where we need to. But hopefully, through all the conversations we've had over the past 2-3 weeks, we think we're in a good position with the document. So I'll just share it. Hopefully this works. If I just
Brilliant.
so everyone can see it. Let me have a look. Everybody read that, or do I need to increase it?
Just to tell people, if you want to move your screen, you can move it with you can usually move it with your mouse if your screen is blocking part of it.
Okay.
Just saying to, I know some people might not be used to it, or you can minimize your views of people on the left. There's a little minimizer button.
Okay, so I'll skim. It's only a couple of pages, but I'll skim through it. So it's purpose of the grant is to support the freelancers in the cultural sectors facing challenges from April of this year through to March of next year as a result of COVID. That's the fundamental principles. It's all run through Business Wales, so we're taking this as an opportunity to gather more evidence around the community. So a good opportunity for us to get more details there, just to sign up the Business Wales portal via this. As I say, we're really keen to focus down about the sectors we want to support. So it will be the kind of the freelancers working in the arts, within the creative industries, within the arts and heritage event sector, and within culture and heritage. And in the online tracker, the eligibility checker, there is more detail around that, and we will be providing a little bit more detail around who in those groups we see as kind of eligible. You'll be eligible if you're employed part-time and also have a freelance professional creative practice. But as I said earlier, this is targeted at freelancers in the most need of support, because we don't have kind of a bottomless pit. We have to be kind of supporting where it's needed. You will be eligible if you've received previous JRS or self-employment income support. I know that kind of set the hairs running when we sent the first iteration of the eligibility criteria out, because I'd written it in such a way that it looked like you wouldn't be eligible if you'd had SEISS previously, but that's not the case. So as we say, you won't be eligible if you work in the sports sector. We're looking to fund creative cultural subsectors, as I've said, so we are putting in there that architects, graphic designers, games designers, who we know through our conversations with many people within those sectors, have been working right throughout the crisis. So we're trying to target those who haven't. And if you recently received the funding from the Startup Grant, which is a COVID fund as well, you'll be ineligible because that was within the last couple of weeks that was delivered. In terms of what you need to provide, so we're trying to make this as simple a process as possible, because we realise you're individuals, you're not used to filling in forms in many instances like businesses would be, so we're trying to keep it as straightforward as possible. Proof of identification is critical, obviously. This does come with a massive fraud risk. A fund of this nature is easily targeted by fraud. All the other schemes that we've run over the past few months, you won't believe some of the fraud activity that's been targeted at these funds. It's quite eye-opening, really, in terms of what people will try on during a crisis that such we're in. But what we need is proof of identification in either a photocard driving license, signed passport, original birth certificate, and in the other section there, we'll put a list of things that the local authorities can base that on. But it could be things like the paper-based driving license, an adoption certificate, things that other bits of information that freelancers may have that they might not have the first three. There could be instances where someone doesn't have the first three, so we provide as much opportunity for them to provide proof of ID via another mechanism. Proof of address, obviously, that's important as well for the local authority you bid into for the money. And then critically, proof of some work between April and July, so April 2019 and July 2020, and proof of work cancelled between April 20 and March 21. So we're not asking for you to send in every bit of work that you've had in that time frame, just some evidence that you are who you say you are. You are a freelancer that works within the sectors that we've outlined. Again, it's more of a fraud mitigation measure than anything, but it's important that you can provide that bit of evidence. And that bit of evidence could come in a contract, a cancelled contract, it could come in invoices, it could come in from a reference from an employer. As an example, we liaise very closely with the music venues. We fund and support the music venues in Wales. They had a question about DJs coming into their venues and say, well, we wouldn't have kind of much paper-based evidence of them coming in and working for us. Well, in that instance, we'd ask the local authorities to pick up the phone to that employer and ask if that person has worked there. Obviously, if the person said yes, then we'd take that as enough of a guarantee. Letter of engagement, Arts Council Wales, and then other as well. If none of those you can use to provide us with the information we need, then obviously you can provide some other source, but we'd have to ensure that we could relate it to you as an individual. The point there about maternity, parental and adoption leave as well is important, because we know some of the freelance community missed out due to being on maternity or parental leave during the crisis. Other information we'll be asking for: a recent copy of a bank statement. And this is not for us to check your bank accounts. We're not in the business of looking at people's individual bank accounts. It's again to check who you are as an individual. It won't be used as part of the appraisal. So if we'll ask for a bank statement within the last 3 months, and if in that bank statement you've got evidence of wages, that doesn't matter. It's not going to be used as part of the appraisal process. It's just there to kind of confirm who you are as part of the information we require to ensure that the person you are is who you say you are. So it's not going to be used as part of the appraisal. I can 100% confirm that, and we will not be investigating those bank statements in any way, shape or form. Unique tax reference where possible. And we know, talking to Sean, that in some instances where people work under a pay-away deducted contracts system, that's not possible. So we'll take things such as P60 or proof of employment on short-term contracts. So we're trying to be as flexible as we can in terms of the information that you guys can provide. We're also asking for a CV as well, just to kind of show what kind of work you've been doing, to prove who you are, as you say you are, and to show that you've been working in sectors that we want to target. So as I said, 2,500 per individual, and it'll be a one-off payment of 2,500. We won't be giving someone £1,000. We'll give some 1,500. Everyone who gets through is eligible will get that payment of 2,500. It's much easier and much quicker to do it that way. All applications considered on an individual basis. I've got to put in there that it's at absolute discretion of the local authority, because they'll be managing this on our behalf. But all the guidance has been written by ourselves, all the criteria, the application forms, everything to do with the fund has been designed by the Welsh Government, and the authorities will be following what we've sent. A little bit there on the Freelance Pledge, which I mentioned. So obviously we know you're active participants in the community already, many of you, working towards kind of the ambitions of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And what we really want to do is kind of use this as an opportunity to start a new conversation with the freelance community. So that's what this is about, contributing to local development, bringing new approaches to capital projects, whatever it is, how we can work with you guys and use your skills and expertise better than we have done in the past. So as I say, if you're interested, please opt in. So you don't have to if you don't want to. That doesn't mean you won't get the money. You will still get the money. We put it as a voluntary thing because we didn't think putting it mandatory was the right way to do it. Eligibility Checker, as I say, have a look at that, and we will be changing that again over the next day or two, just to catch up with all the changes we've made. If you're eligible, you'll be directed to the local authority website, where there'll be an online application, and I'm pushing as much as possible that the authorities deliver an online solution, but where they can't, they'll provide forms that you can fill in online, basically via email. We're also going to be working with Disability Cymru to provide better access forms where we can. So we're working on easy read forms at the moment. And if you do have access issues, there'll be a Business Wales helpline number put in there, where you can see in yellow. And we'll make sure that if you have access issues, we can provide with the support and services you need to make sure you get you get help filling out the application form. So we're trying to be as inclusive as we can with this application process. And as I say, it's still work in development, so I need to add the phone number in there and the email address as well, but we'll give as much support as we can. As I said, opens on Monday the 5th, phase 1, open for a short period of time, and then followed by a second phase. 2 reasons there. It gives us the ability to allow people who need more time to bid into the second phase, but also from a fund management, from my side of the house, if we see in phase 1 that, I don't know, say Cardiff has had a much bigger application number than the allocation it got within the first 50%, compared to, I don't know, let's say Anglesey, who've had a much lower allocation, then we have the ability to move money around at that stage as well to where the demand is needed. So if there are authorities that don't need as much money as we've given in the model, we have the ability then to move it around at that stage if needed to. So it's a good kind of pause for that as well to happen. So guidance on the form, all this will be online and ready for you to use, but all we'll be asking your personal details, information about your work, a little bit of impact on COVID and how it's affected you, your bank details, and then declarations, and that's it. It's a 2-page form, the application form. It's not more detailed than that. It's under de minimis. Most of you probably won't know what de minimis is. It's a scary state aid word. It basically means the legal route that we're using to provide you with the money. So all we need to know is if you've had any de minimis in the past 3 years. That's something we have to ask as part of the kind of the European regulation. So if you need help with that, you should have known if you've had de minimis aid in the past. But if you need help with that, that's something that we can, through the local authorities, provide help and support as well. So in terms of the checklist, as I say, the application form, proof of identification, proof of work, recent bank statement, UTR number or relevant evidence, and a CV. And then once all of that has come in, once the application has been received and all of the information is provided, within 10 working days, we would hope to be getting the money out the door to you, really. So Arts Council Wales, their process is opened and closed, but they won't be appraising their projects until the middle of October. So no money will be going out the door to Arts Council Wales applicants until middle of October. In terms of our Culture Fund, we won't be appraising business organisations' applications until the 5th of October either. So the freelancers will be receiving money into your bank accounts exactly the same time as the other part of the Culture Fund. So even though the application timescales have been a little bit different, you'll all be receiving money into your bank accounts around the same time, which will be middle to late October and into November, I would envisage. If your application is unsuccessful, you will receive an email outlining the reasons why. Unfortunately, there's no appeals process. We just don't have the time to deal with an appeals process through the COVID crisis. It's a difficult thing to do, but we were hoping that you have enough evidence and reason of why you're unsuccessful that there wouldn't be a need for an appeals process. We're hoping that everyone who comes in and applies is eligible and should get the money. We don't want to be in a position where there's loads of unsuccessful applications, because that causes a administration headache further down the line. And that's it. That's what we're trying to do. I've got to thank Sian and Gerwyn for their help in getting us to this stage, and others as well. So, as I said, 5th of October, if you weren't aware of that date, you are now. If I just stop sharing that document. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions, Sian, any comments on that. That was a very quick run through in terms of the money, the fund, and the guidance. So if anyone's got any questions, I'm sure you do. I'll try and answer them as best as I can.
Yeah, there's plenty of questions. I just wanted to go over to Gerwyn. Gerwyn, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Sian. And yes, just before we take some questions, I did want to say a sincere thank you to you, Gerwyn, and also to your team within the Welsh Government, with whom we've been working with since January, but increasingly so, as you pointed out, since the outbreak of the pandemic. But I did want to say you really have done a great job in recognising the vast range of ways in which freelancers are engaged within the creative industry, and your willingness to consult with the creative unions to support these people who are joining us today, the lifeblood of this vital industry, shows stark contrast to that which we've seen from Westminster. I hope that everybody on the call tonight finds it useful and that your applications are successful. But I also hope that you will all extend a thanks to Gerwyn and his team for all of their hard work in bringing about this lifeline to you. So that's all I wanted to say. So shall we take a couple of questions? Let's go off the hands first, is it? Or shall we go through?
Can we go through the list first?
Yeah, can go through the list if you want. So, okay, so let's go to the top, yeah, from first one, yeah. How can I prove that I have had work cancelled when most of the events I work on were cancelled long before they contacted me to discuss a contract? If the work is cancelled, is based on one's contract with which was cancelled, then I will not be able to show the work that I lost in that year. Now, I think that comes back to what we were talking about last week, Gerwyn, where there may well not be what this fund seeks to do, rather than, or rather what the application seeks to do, rather than having to justify the work that's been cancelled. It recognises that there was a lack of work because of the pandemic. Is that right, Gerwyn?
Yeah, so I think in that instance, if the individual is unable to show any previous work done prior to March that shows they work in the freelance community, what I would suggest they do is they must have some kind of contact within the events industry or within an event that they've worked for previously that we could use to have a quick conversation with, to kind of prove that they are who they say they are and they have lost work. If there's no written or formal evidence that the individual could share with us, we're happy to have a conversation with them about speaking to some of the events organisers or whatever it is to really prove that. I think we do need some kind of proof of loss of work where possible, but I know that's difficult in many instances. We're trying to be as flexible as we can. So where, in that instance, where no kind of documentation can be provided, we would be more than willing to go off the back of a reference phone call.
Okay. The next one here, we'll move through quickly because we've only got a limited amount of time. I was on a rolling monthly contract when COVID hit. I officially lost out on 2 weeks of the contract. However, as all productions in the industry shut down, there was no jobs available for me for 3 months. So I couldn't apply for any jobs until they started up again at the end of June. How do I prove that I lost that work if I was on a short-term contract? Similar thing, I think, isn't it, Gerwyn?
Similar thing.
Yeah.
Same. So if they can't provide the evidence, then we'd be more than happy to take a personal recommendation as long as that information is provided and we can kind of guarantee who we're getting a personal recommendation off. Then that's fine.
But obviously, if they've been engaged on a production and it's lost 2 weeks of that contract, they'd have evidence of that, surely, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, Paul, big question is, will the grant count towards eligibility for universal credit for the month when the grant is paid?
You'll have to explain that one to me, Calvin. Sorry, will it?
Shall I explain?
Yes.
Yes, Paul, go on.
Yeah, anybody else on universal credit at the moment has to declare income received for the previous month, which then gets deducted off against their universal credit. So is this as a grant being counted as a self-employed income, and therefore will it mean that you will not get any universal credit for that month and until that £2,500 that you would have got as universal credit gets used up?
The honest answer to that, Paul, is I'm not 100% sure. What I would hope is that it would be seen as something outside of the universal credit, and this is there as kind of a recovery support.
I can't find anything anywhere that says whether grants, take you off universal credit, because the assumption at the moment seems to be that if you're on SEISS or Cs as they call it, that you won't be getting universal credit.
Oh, excuse me, sorry for interrupting. I actually had a past experience regarding this with a grant from the film and TV charity while receiving universal credit, and it wasn't classed as income.
Okay.
So,
I'll speak. I know the film and TV charity. Sai, I think, mentioned it then, and please keep your eyes open and ears open to them as well, because I hear rumours that they might be opening another fund back up. So on Sai's point, I'll speak to the film and TV charity, and if they've got a line that says that the grant is not related to the universal credit, then I'll use that. The fundamental point for me is to get as much money into you guys to help you keep going as much as possible.
it's about DWP classing it as income, and with the grant I received from film and TV charity, it wasn't classed as income.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just hope that the universal credit are going to be included in the loop. There are too many things at the moment where one department doesn't know what another department is doing.
There's a few questions here from Stephanie Bolt. Would Stephanie feel comfortable in putting these forward? I think the first answer is, or the first question is, did Gerwyn say the max per freelancer total is 2,500? Yes, that's how I understand it, Gerwyn. But Stephanie, would you feel comfortable in putting a number of these questions forward?
Yeah, hi Gerwyn. Thank you. The main thing is with Arts Council of Wales closing most of their normal funding programmes, then unless colleagues on the call are part of an APW, Arts Council of Wales portfolio organisation, they've not been able to apply for any of the what would have been normal funding. So it's this nebulous question over having worked towards funding, but that funding being closed, we've then had to survive in different ways. But it's prospective funding that's been lost. So if we've been working and there's evidence of working on a piece of research, and it would have normally gone forward for funding, can we put that forward, perhaps with discussion with portfolio officers at Arts Council of Wales, as evidence of work in hand and projected lost income?
Yes.
Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
Stephanie, so we've been working closely with Nick throughout this
Yeah.
process. So we kind of have a board which meets twice a week at the moment to look at the overall delivery of the Culture Fund. And I know that they're thinking about what they do with their lottery funds as well.
Yes.
Arts Council of Wales, so I think there's going to be some positive messages around that shortly. So yeah, we've had a few emails in regarding people who would have been eligible for the lottery funds that may not be eligible for this. So we're hoping that can be squared off now as well.
Okay, thank you. Diolch yn fawr. That's my questions done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Thanks for that. Now, the next question from Mena was, what if you're a new freelancer whose first official job was cancelled due to COVID? Similar scenario, but I think as long as there's a paper trail to that, Gerwyn, we'd be able to say that, well, we can demonstrate that this was somebody who's lost out because of COVID.
Yes, 100%, yeah. As long as you're not a freelancer that became a freelancer on October the 2nd, the Friday before the Monday the scheme goes live, then I think there's some way you can demonstrate that you are a freelancer. So if we made it any looser than we've got it, you could basically just say you were a freelancer and apply. So we do have to have that evidence. But if someone's only been working a short time, you should have that evidence.
Oh, lovely job. Paul, what is this point here about the Business Wales website and the proof of cancel, not and proof of work? I don't follow, sorry.
Right, on the wording on the eligibility checker at the moment refers to evidence of the work you did last year and evidence of work cancelled. But it says and or evidence of work cancelled. Is that intending that it will be an and or an and?
Yeah, no, it's we need to reword that. So that's changed, Paul, over the past 10 days or so when we've been reworking it. So it'll be as I said in the guidance, so it'll be work previously or work going forward.
I think we've answered Anthony's question here. Those on who had a PAYE contract cut off in March 2020 when the lockdown was announced, still eligible for the still be eligible if the contract would have lasted until October. Well, that's a prime example of what's eligible here, isn't it? Providing that we can provide that the applicant can provide evidence of that that engagement, isn't it?
Yes.
Jamie, if the local authorities happen not to pay out their full amount, do they have to return it, or can they invest it as they see fit?
They'll have to return it. So I see the 7 million being spent quite quickly. So as I say, if there's an authority where they don't have the number of applications for their funding allocation, we'll transfer it to where it's needed. And look, I think this fund will be oversubscribed, so I'll be using all my kind of powers that if we can get more money into this fund, if it's needed, if it's well oversubscribed, that's something that we will be lobbying for as well. But I can't see a situation where there's going to be an underspend. I might be wrong, but I would think 2,800 people in the freelance community need this money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Question here from Andrew. Is the payment classed as taxable income? And that goes back to, I think you could draw a comparison to the film and TV charity grant, I would assume.
No, it wouldn't be taxable income, no.
Okay, lovely. Paul, will the application form be on the Business Wales website, or will it be linked through to an application form from the local authority website?
It'll be linked through, so they'll be each on the local authority websites, but as I say, it'll all be standardised. So you'll go in through the Business Wales, you'll say which area you're from, and then you'll be directed through that area.
Yeah. And Harad says, I'm a freelance PAYE, not self-employed. Am I still eligible? Yeah, as I understand it, yeah. Very nice. Well, thank you, Tricia. Thanks, Gerwyn and the team. This would need to be checked with the that's Shan, DWP. They're launching the fund tomorrow. Link to the fund. Question for people that are completely out of work till March and possibly longer. Do you think there will be a second phase of funding?
Oh, I think it all depends on how the next few weeks or months goes, I think. So probably most of you are not aware, but government funding goes on an annual basis. So everything we're doing at the moment is kind of runs up until March of next year. So if we're still in this crisis into March, April, June next year, then obviously our new budget allocations in the Welsh Government next year, we'd have the ability to direct them as we'd need to, depending on where we are in the crisis. So very much if we were still in recovery mode and crisis, that would be something that we'd have to take into account where our budgets are designed.
Mm-hmm. Now, Philip here says, the HMRC told me when I reached 65 7 years back, I no longer needed to submit self-employed tax returns as I haven't earned enough to pay tax for some years. Would the lack of such an up-to-date return would preclude me from any grant, etc. monies?
Okay, so I take it the gentleman is retired, yes?
Philip, are you on? Are you able to speak?
Okay, in the absence of what, for me, the difficulty there is, as I say, I've got a finite budget, it's only 7 million. We think we have to target those people still in work. So if individuals are retired, I think it becomes a more difficult conversation in terms of supporting them.
Gerwyn, can I just intersect really? I think one of the things that we'd want to talk about in the future is the vulnerability of freelancers because they haven't been in employment, and sometimes many of us who've been freelance have been working into our 70s. So again, I think that's something, you know, that is a conversation that needs to be to happen, because you know, people are forced to work, although with the retirement age might be 65, 66 or whatever it is when they retire, they might not be able to because of their lack of pension.
Okay, yeah, more than happy, Sean, to have a discussion on that. That sounds an important area to definitely look into. But I guess for this fund, it's kind of, it's not as black and white as if you retire, you're ineligible. But I think they'd have to make a strong case compared to the working population who this fund is effectively targeted at.
Yes, listen, we're into the last 10 minutes now, and I want to wrap it up on time if everybody's okay. So let's take some questions from the hands up in the participants box. Sarah, now I remember you put your hand up very early to confirm that you could do it. Is your hand meant to still be up? Do you have a question?
Yes, I have. I'm a limited company with no staff, and I file annually, so I missed out on every grant going, and so I didn't work for 6 months, but I was on a running contract at the BBC. And now all of a sudden there's another grant come through as well, and I was just wondering, it's this one's called Cultural Recovery Fund Grants, Creative Industry TV. Do I try my luck and apply for 2, or do I apply for 1 and see how it goes?
Say again the name of the last one, because I kind of...
It's somebody's just sent me a link, because she was the only one who I knew that was in the same position as me, a limited company. It's a Cultural Recovery Fund grant.
Yeah, so the Cultural Recovery Fund is what's running alongside this. So if you go on the Eligibility Checker, you either click you're a business or you click you're a freelancer.
Oh, it's the same one?
It's the same one, yes.
Ah, right, yes, I'm with you. So I obviously press business.
Yeah.
I'm with you, yeah. Okay, yeah, that answers my question then. So then I'd be visual effects through me. Yeah, thank you very much.
No worries.
Okay, Glyn?
Hi, I'm also, good, thank you. I'm also a limited company who hasn't been eligible to anything. I've gone 28 weeks now with no pay. I've been in the television industry for 38 years, freelancing for 14 years. How do I stand? Do you think I will be able to claim for this grant?
Yeah, so very much like Sarah said, which part of the TV sector do you work in, Graham? Is it?
Right, okay, you've probably never heard of this, but I'm a rigger driver. So when we go out on outside broadcasts, you know, the big trucks that go to site, I drive one of the trucks, and then we do all the cabling. We set everything up for the cameras and the sound and vision, and so it's the rigging. It's the rigging department. So it's not to do with the yards. But as I say, it's been 28 weeks now, 7 months since March, and there's been no work for me. So I've fallen through this safety net.
Yeah.
So I've been entitled to absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So very much like Sarah said, if you look at the business fund, I'd recommend you applying to that.
Okay, because I've been told by numerous people that I'm not entitled to anything.
Well, this is new. This is a new fund. So if you've been told that previously, this is obviously the one fund has only been open since last Wednesday, and this freelancer fund is not even open yet. So
yeah. But do you think I should fill this form out?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I think again, Gerwyn, this is where some people limited companies, some are sole traders, some are PAYE. You know, it's not of the making of the people in this sector. So, you know, Glyn is in one of those.
I'm just thinking about it. So the limited companies, Sarah and Glyn, I'm hoping if you don't mind me kind of exploring that in a little bit more detail. So you're the only people in that company, yeah? There's no other, you're the only director, there's no other individuals.
No, there's just me, and the way it was set up by my accountant, I was paid in dividends.
Yeah. So thinking about it, you're probably best to go into the freelancer fund, because even though you're a limited company, you're an individual. So the business one is there, as it says, to support business. Even though you're a limited company by definition, you're an individual when we'll be looking at. So I would fit into the 2,500, and you'll both be eligible under that.
Because there's only, as you say, there's only me. It's just me.
Yeah.
Does it make a difference if you file annually as a company through your accountants? Because that's why we've fallen through the net, as it were.
I'll make sure that's built into the FAQs for the local authorities. So where there's instances like yourselves, that we'll provide the information, and if you provide your annual accounts, that'll be enough.
Okay.
All right. Next one, Si. How are you, Si? All right.
Very good, thanks. I had a very quick two-part question. First one was, Gerwyn, that document that you shared when you shared your screen, is that going to be accessible to refer to?
Yes, not for another day or two. I've got to get it translated, and I've got to put it into a better shape, add some telephone numbers into it, but it'll be up before the application process opens on the 5th. Because
I did see a criteria there that said about you're eligible if you had work lined up for the month of March onward and it was cancelled. Is that right? Yeah. But if you were out of work for other reasons predating the pandemic, because I've actually been out of work since November last year for health reasons that happened way before the pandemic came to the UK. Does that exclude me from this, just to confirm? No, we shouldn't exclude on that basis. I think what you need to do is demonstrate the work you did prior to November. So in the guidance, you can prove work back to April 2019. Oh, 2019. Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you can just prove just for insurance reasons, because my health steadily declined between June and November last year. Okay. And insurance reasons, I just wasn't allowed to work. Yeah. So if you provide detail of where you worked pre-November 2019. And then some information about kind of your current situation and why you haven't been able to work through COVID, that'll be enough. Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And Amy?
Hello. You just mentioned earlier, it's more of a comment than a question. I'm kind of representing a team of people that we make events in Wales at the moment, which you may or may not have heard about. You mentioned about 12,500 people currently, freelancers wise, affected. We're currently gathering a load of data regarding that, and we're happy to share that. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. If you would like, by all means. And just want to extend my thanks from everyone for the support, really. Yeah, no, thank you, Amy. Yeah, any data that you guys have got, please share it through Sean and Gerwyn to myself, and we'll build that in. So as I said, this is I've been in Welsh Government for a long time, and I think we've fallen into the trap that it's easy to count widgets and people making widgets.
it's very difficult. Welsh Government don't understand the freelance community, and I'm being brutally honest there. I think this gives us a real opportunity to to start understanding you and your economic contribution, but also how we work more effectively with you as well. So if you've got any data of any kind of sort, please share it and we'll use that.
Absolutely. No problem.
Okay, and I think we're just in time here for the last question from Jamie.
Hey there. Just many of the grants seem to have an eligibility, as in you have to invest it into something within your freelance business or your business, etc. For example, a new vehicle or equipment. Is this just a grant to help you get through these times?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Very good. And we've got time for one more, Andrew.
Gerwyn, I'm a freelance musician of 25 years, 50, and my income is PAYE on a 0 hours. Exclude me because I'm PAYE on 0 hours contract.
Andrew, the line is breaking up there quite badly. Do you want to have one last go just to see whether we can get the question?
Sorry, my internet went again. Sorry, I was just saying I'm a freelance musician excluded on the 50% rule. 45% of my income is self-employed. The rest is on a 0 hours PAYE contract, but that contract hasn't come to an end. It's with the Army Reserve, but all work virtually has been cancelled because we're not able to take part. So does that cause a problem because the contract has not been cancelled as such? It's just that my work has been cancelled.
No, Andrew, you'll be fine. We haven't got the 50% rule like is in with the other scheme, so you'll be okay.
Thank you.
Well, diolch yn fawr. That's absolutely fantastic. So thank you everybody for all your wonderful questions, and thank you very, very much, Gerwyn, for being so open. And we look forward to inviting you again. Just a quick note on the something for something point you made about local authorities.
Yeah.
You know, over in the past, lots of members have sort of complained because local authorities have gone to places like London to get work. So I think that could be a really fantastic opportunity to make sure we can live local and still work.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, Sean, hopefully in better times we can come back and have a similar meeting with your members around Creative Wales and what our ambitions are and how we want to work with you guys to grow the creative industries in Wales. But I think we need let's get through this crisis first, and then we can have some more positive conversations hopefully next time.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr pawb. Carwyn, have you got anything else to say? David, you happy? Okay.
Just another thank you. Gerwyn, please make sure you convey our thanks to your team and give yourself a pat on the back as well. We really do appreciate it.
Okay, nos da pawb, and again, you know, if you're not a member, please join. If you are a member, then keep on supporting because you make up the membership. We want this industry to survive. Okay, diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much, everybody.